What's up, y'all? It's 10 at 3 time at Tennessee. How are you? Hope you're doing well. Hope everything in your life is going great on this Monday afternoon, this frigid Monday afternoon. The beware the Ides of December, said the weather forecast today.
It ain't that bad.
I'll tell you, Tom Barkley, you're a tough military man. I am not. This is.
I mean, with the sun out, it feels perfectly fine out there right now.
What's the actual temperature right now? What's the actual?
I actually don't. I don't have a gauge on it.
Put some perspective on this.
Above,
Hold on.
It's above freezing right now with the sun on you for sure.
Did it definitely get above freezing? Okay.
I mean, it was like 10 degrees this morning. That was pretty cold.
I'm checking
I'll
this
admit
right
that.
off the bat. Okay, 34 degrees.
I was right.
Barely
above freezing, and that to me is perfect winter weather.
I think last night it was about 13, 12 degrees when the wife was like, you should take the trash out. And I said, have you been outside? She's like, this smells. I know it smells, but the risk-reward calculus on how bad this smells versus how cold it is outside, I got to tell you, I'm leaning toward dealing with this stench and you being mad at me. That's where I'm coming down on this.
You got curbside trash service? You get a little rolly bin?
Yeah, but you got to still go outside.
It's better than having to drive it all the way over to the dump.
Oh, yeah, no, we're not doing that. No, we live in the city. We pay the city taxes. We're not doing optional tax pickup. It's included in the package, right?
There used to be a day, though.
Yes, there was a day. And just as a heads up before we get going today, I'll give you a heads up. You may have been able to hear it already. My voice not great today. Now, it's never great. But playing a little bit hurt today, just as a heads up. I'm going to try not to cough is my goal. I'm going to try. It's not going to work. It's going to happen.
Just cough away from the mic, you know. You don't want to spread the germs to the folks
I'm going to try to hit the mute button when I need to do that. But seeing as how Elijah and Emily are neither one of them is in working today. Woke up this morning like, oh no, it's cold.
Yeah.
I don't feel good at all. Yeah. But you know what? We're playing through it. You can't make the club in the tub. You can't make the club in the tub.
What does that even mean?
The injury tub, like the ice tub.
Oh.
Can't make the club in the tub. You got to go out there. You got to fight through it. You got to persevere. So here we are, stepping into the breach, giving it a go on this Monday, where we have a lot to discuss. Obviously, there's been a lot of both Tennessee news and SEC news, college football news, college basketball news. There's a lot of places that we can go for the next 56, 55 minutes or so. I will tell you straight up now, I can tell you my Heisman vote because every year we do the vote and then we can't say anything until the award's been given out.
Sure.
And so now that that's happened, I can tell you that the top three was my top three in order. So it kind of went to chalk this season. I went with Mendoza 1, I went with Pavia 2, and I went Jeremiah Love 3. I really, really thought about going a little bit higher with Rodriguez, that linebacker at Texas Tech. That was kind of my wild card pick, but just not quite there. It's not – I don't feel like I kind of wanted to get him in there, but at the end of the day, I was like, man, Love's had a really good year too. And so that's the way that I went. And so it's just kind of I guess, chalky, right? Plain Jane over here. Nothing exciting on this ballot. Nothing
right
controversial.
Line,
no hot takes. No nothing. And people have said, well, you know, what do you make of what Pavia did afterward? And listen, it's not great. I mean, it's not. I'm not going to sit here and say it's not a good look. The whole telling the voters, what was it? F all the voters, basically, is what he said.
That's not, you know, you're supposed to sometimes take these things in stride, right? A little grace.
Now,
you know?
I will say this. I've been told that word to myself by coaches and players before, kind of privately, but Pavia's gone on and done it publicly, and in a weird way, it's not good for his brand. I kind of respect it a little bit. Because anything that you would say behind closed doors, it's not good for your brand. It's not good for your school. It's not good for your future. But it's honest. That's how he feels. And instead of just telling that to friends and family, he decided to tell the world. So
fair point. I guess if being completally honest.
I mean, I had him second on my ballot, right?
Is that the way to do it, though?
I had him on. A lot of people didn't even have him on his ballot. So maybe I get maybe I don't get like an F word. Maybe I get like a different word, like I'm disappointed in you. Because you were on the ballot, my man. Like, you were there at second. So, but, hey, that's
Maybe find a different F-bomb to drop,
Yeah. What
For us in the TV biz, we tend not to like the F-bomb being dropped in front of us.
It's not
Tends
great.
to make some of the government agencies that regulate some of that stuff very angry.
It's true, but like in the Wild West of streaming, I don't know if we know what the rules are. Now, we're going to go by the regular rules here, ladies and gentlemen. We are family friendly here. We are family friendly, no question about it. However, if we were to make a mistake, which we won't in that way, I don't know what the penalty. I don't do any of us really know at this point. It's kind of the Wild West days a little bit. Now, if this were broadcasting live like on the regular network, then of course, hey, we know what those rules are, and you're in trouble. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. But regardless, I don't think that was a great look, but I'm not going to sit here and, oh no, young man makes bad social media post, poses next to sign of bashing the guy who won the award. Like, I mean, there's people out there getting arrested and stuff on a daily basis. You know what I mean? Like, there are
far worse things to do.
Bad things to do.
Far worse things to do than dropping the F-bomb.
Is it a great look? No, but I've said all season, and I mean this, it is objectively funny to me. To me. I guess I would say, I can't say it's objectively funny to you or to anyone else, but to me, so I guess subjectively and objectively from this personal standpoint here, it's a little funny that the most polarizing presence in college football is the quarterback at Vanderbilt University. It's a little funny. When you think of it historically, in that context, it's kind of funny.
Yeah, I get what you mean there.
It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
And it's also funny that while he's doing that, he's like 5'5". He's really probably 5'9", 5'10", but they did list him at 6 feet, and you can tell by the pictures. I told you this on, what was it, I think it was Friday when Ben was on here, because Ben McKee and I are about the same height.
Yeah.
And talked about, at least from my point of view, if you're anywhere from like 5'10" to 6'2", maybe 6'3", if I've stood next to you, I know exactly how tall you are. Because I'm 6'1", and I know exactly how tall I am. And I've stood in the room with that guy and been like, you, fella, you are not 6 feet tall. I can tell that because I've been in the same room with you, and I know how tall I am. But it is kind of funny that Vandy's kind of sawed off. Quarterback is just, he's sawed off on the roster. He's sawed off with the mouth. He just goes. So not a great look, especially when you dovetail that with what Mendoza is all about and everything, that young man and his story and just what seems to be unimpeachable character, or just the best PR work ever, because it really looks like he's that way, and everybody who's ever covered him says he's that way. So, I mean, Occam's razor, it's probably a good guy. Yeah. I think that's probably fair to say. And I don't think that it feels a little, like I said, plain Jane, to say, oh, well, the quarterback on the number one team in the country, he's going to win the Heisman. And I try so hard to not be devil's advocate, but to just make sure that we're thinking about things from every angle. And if I can find an interesting way to where I can validate this guy definitely should have been the Heisman winner. I don't care if he's a defensive tackle. I don't care whatever he is. In all honesty, probably not going to be a kicker or punter. But anybody else, hey, there are times where I would like to see that happen. I just didn't. The tech linebacker was close, but he wasn't quite there for me. And so I do think what's going on at Indiana has to be sort of reflected in the national story, because it's Indiana football. Indiana football. Undefeated, number one in the country. Going to the playoff again this season. Undefeated. Just beat Ohio State for the Big Ten title. How can you not say, okay, maybe the Heisman Trophy winner should be a member of this football team? Now, I think that can also, it kind of cheapens like the team lift aspect of it, because Cignetti's gotten all the love and should. I mean, for a guy who got to Indiana, and there were many of us who laughed when at a press conference being introduced, he said, "Google me, I win." Now, that's almost the equivalent. That's a little bit veering toward the territory of Diego Pavia land. In terms of you're the quarterback at Vanderbilt talking like this. You're the head coach at Indiana saying this. Like, Google me, I win, bro. And then backed it up. So it would have been nice if Mendoza had like a 300-yard game against Ohio State and, led this big, huge, like John Elway style drive. But he did come from behind to beat him. And in a year where I don't think anybody else really stood out, because what got me, and this is the honest truth, I think if the award were simply who's the most important player to their team in college football, which is not, which is not the parameters for what they give us. As voters, they basically say most outstanding player in the country, and you figure it out. So they're not exactly narrowing this down, right? And if we're being honest, this is what college football is about. It's about debate and argument. And that's just how that's how this is. For years, who was really the national champion? We don't know. 4-team playoff, who's the number 5 team? Should they have been in? Now the 12-team playoff, who's the 13th team? Why should they have been in there? Tell you what, if it goes to, which I would like it to do, is go to 14 and stop. But whether it goes to 14 or 16, you know what's going to be after that? Who's 17? Who's 15? If this guy was named Player of the Year, why wasn't this guy named it? This guy was named First Team All-SEC. Why wasn't this guy from the second team put on the first team? This guy was better than this guy. That's just baked into the cake. That's how college football operates. And that's one of those things that's a feature, not a bug. And the reason I think it should be 14 is because I would like there to be some margin of incentive for a really good regular season. And I think you take maybe the two highest ranked conference champions, they get a bye. And then the 3 through 8 seeds, or 3 through 9 seeds, I guess. Let me see, how would that math go? Yeah, the next 6 best teams would be hosting. So 1 and 2 get a bye. And then 3, I guess, through 8, they get to host a first-round game. And then you can go to byes for the semifinals and, quarters, semis, whatever. But I think for that first round, you kind of make a process there. Because if it's 16, then everybody's playing the equal amount of games, yada, yada. Then you're saying, okay, is there any difference in being 2 and 3? And I feel like there should be a little difference in being 2 and 3. I think there should be a little difference there. I think you should have more than... Now, I think also the 1 and 2 seeds should get an equal split of the playoff revenue for hosting that game. I think 3 through 8 host a game, and you put all that money in a pot, and you divide it by 8, more or less, after costs and all that. Because then I think 1 and 2 might be like, hey, man, we'd like to have that game on our campus for the revenue. Okay, well, we'll still split it 8 ways and not 6 for that first round revenue. And that way, you've got a nice little tiered system there of 1, 2 get a bye, 3 through 8 get to host. Everybody else goes on the road for the first round. That way, you've got kind of 3 tiers of. So you're still taking what some people think is the best part of college football, which is the fact that the regular season is so important. You're not completely doing away with that. And it's not like I'm going to sit there and cry over spilled milk if it goes to 16 or whatever. And listen, just don't go more than that. At that point, that's at that point, when does it stop? It's like the joke I make with hyphenating last names. At what point does it stop? Where does it stop? How many letters are we going to have to type here? I don't like that. I'd rather there be some incentive. So most years, if we're being honest, that would be the SEC and the Big Ten champion. Now, some years it could be a Big 12 champion, if the ACC even exists in 6 or 8 years, which I don't know that it will, but if it still existed, then sure, maybe Clemson or Florida State could be there. But I still think there's not going to be, probably not going to be an ACC down the road. And if it is, I don't think Clemson and Florida State are going to be in it. So you can kind of see where that's going. So, yeah, I mean, most of the times it'd be the SEC and Big Ten champion, and they get a bye. So this year, I guess it'd be, Indiana, Georgia. And then Ohio State, Oregon, Ole Miss, everybody else, those guys are hosting. And then teams like Bama are going on the road in the first round. A&M would kind of be right there on the borderline. That's how I would do it. But we're always going to have disagreement on this. And it gets the same way with the Heisman stuff. They don't tell us exactly, okay, it's got to be from this kind of team. It's got to be from one of the best teams in the country. It's the best player from the best team. It's the most outstanding player. They kind of leave it open-ended. And so if Vanderbilt had beaten a team that is ranked right now at the end of the regular season, I probably would have voted for Pavia. But they played 2 of those games and lost them both. And I'm not – I still had the guy second on my ballot, so it's not like it's a disrespect. And I think he was, by far, the most important player to a good team in college football. It would not have been wrong if Vandy had gotten into the playoff. But it didn't. And if it had gotten maybe 1 or 2 more good wins, had a tougher schedule, which is sort of their fault, sort of not their fault. It's not their fault that like some of the LSUs and Tennessees that you think will be ranked and then they're not. That's not – I can't blame them for that. But it's kind of the same reason Vandy didn't get into the playoff. It's the same reason Pavia, I think, didn't win the Heisman. Probably just needed one more good win, a win over a ranked team. Because you look at some of his numbers against some of the better teams on the schedule, and they weren't great. They weren't bad. They weren't great. And so, yeah, Mendoza just went undefeated, beat teams who were in the poll, went to a neutral site, beat Ohio State, which also, by the way, had 2 of the 6 top vote getters for the Heisman on that team. And his team went there on a neutral site and beat that team. So it did kind of push him over the top for me in the end. And if the rule was vote for the most important player on a good team in the country, it's Pavia. By a mile, I think. And how he acts off the field, I got to be honest, as a voter, I don't really care. As a voter, I don't care. If we want to break this down, go to like the Professional Baseball Hall of Fame, for instance. They've got guys in there who are not, or maybe should be there, but they're not there because of steroids or betting on baseball, whatever. But you've got like just men who were very openly and proudly racist who are in that Hall of Fame. And so where do we draw the line here? Like you say, don't take steroids, don't bet on baseball, but be a proud, openly racist person. And we're okay with that. Well, we're not. We'll look the other way a little bit because you were a man of your time, yada, yada. So for me, it's like that. Has Pavia done anything since he's been there? Has he committed a violation that we know of? Has he failed a drug test? Has he? No. Not that I know of. And not that it's been reported. Now, Vandy's a private school. There's things they can keep under wraps that are more difficult for other schools. So I guess it's possible because they can hide some of the things they do because the system allows them to, which I think they really should close that loophole. I think the NCAA, I think if you compete with public schools, you ought to be held to the same standards they are in terms of reporting things and being open with. And then it gets to state sunshine laws and everything else. So it's complicated and would be hard to legislate. And given the NCAA's track record in court, probably not great. Probably not great. Speaking of that today, Jeremy Pruitt, his show cause null and void. It cannot be.
Yeah.
Thanks to I guess it's a state judge in Alabama.
Yeah, so it's part of that lawsuit. He filed that back in March, I think. It was early this year when that lawsuit was filed. And basically, the judge came out and said, we're going to issue a preliminary injunction on that specific aspect.
The same thing as the Pavia rule last year.
Yeah, basically saying while this lawsuit plays out, you can coach.
Yes. And so, given the NCAA's track record in court, which is less than stellar.
Yeah, they've been batting zero.
Just about.
Just about for the past 2 years, I'd say.
Speaking of Mendoza, they're well below that Mendoza line. That classic in baseball, for those of you who don't know, the Mendoza line is people who bat less than 200. So that's called the Mendoza line. They're well below the Mendoza line. They may have had a couple of wins here and there, but they're old National League starting pitcher batting average is what they are, more or less, and not like not like one of the pitchers who could hit. Most of the ones who couldn't. But so I think. But back to the point, I think you could argue that there are things that at Vanderbilt you can keep it under wraps and yada yada. And we don't know. Fair enough. We don't know. But we don't know of anything. We know his brother's gotten arrested a couple times. We know he said dumb things on TV. We know he's acted a fool. We know his family has acted a fool. Does that have any bearing whatsoever on a vote for like a Heisman? Maybe for some people it would. For me, it doesn't, because that's not under my voting parameters. They're not like, hey, you got to be a great guy. And for what it's worth, his teammates love him. So I'd direct everybody to a really good column that was in the Tennessean, my friend Gentry Estes, longtime friend, former colleague. You'll meet him on this show more than once, I guarantee you that. Wrote a really good kind of three-dimensional piece on the Pavia thing, saying, listen, this was stupid. And this gives ammunition to all the people who didn't want to like this guy to begin with. And now all the people at Vanderbilt who will defend him and still love him have a harder job because of this. But he did say, and I thought it was a really good point, that a couple days, I think a couple days before the ceremony, Pavia did like some big shopping spree thing with Special Olympics athletes and their families. And that thing had like 20 likes on Twitter. That's it, like 20 or 21. And then you saw how quickly everybody jumped on the bad stuff. So that is how the world works. And if Pavia didn't know that before, I don't know how. But this was a young man who was at New Mexico a few years ago. Was at a JUCO. He hadn't been with a quarterback coach and NIL mentors and brand representatives. He hasn't been with those guys forever to kind of get trained like a robot how you act and how you don't. Doesn't excuse anything, though. And I'll end my discussion with him on this just saying, hey, go read that column, because I think I always sort of try to urge people toward open-mindedness or fairness. And yeah, like I'm not going to sit here and say that he acted well. He didn't. He did some really dumb stuff. But they don't tell me to account for that in my voting, so I don't. If they do, then okay, then we'll change the parameters. But I don't know. He didn't get arrested. I'm not going to, whatever. Not that should be the line. Tom's laughing back there.
The line over there is like, well, he said some bad things, sure. And he did, to be fair, he apologized for it.
He did, but he's not been, he didn't go out and punch somebody in the face. True. He didn't go get a DUI. He didn't, you know what I mean?
But, I mean, the Heisman doesn't account for that, as you mentioned, like Salvation Army, the overall character, if you will, right?
Yeah, like
it's more
maybe some people vote that, but that's their own individual prerogative.
True, but for most people are voting on the line of how well did you, how outstanding were you last season?
Yeah, tell me specifically what the parameters are, and I'll vote along those lines, and then I'll go public with the vote like I do every time I have a vote on anything. I tell you what it is because I believe in that. If we're not transparent, how can we, one, expect people to trust us, and two, how can we expect the people we cover to be open themselves if we're over here, especially now because it's different. You know, like we are a fraction. I don't think in terms of like the general public maybe should matter, but the fact is more so now than before, like we do. There's more shows. We're out there. You know, it's different nowadays. And I think if we're in that position and we demand that, like, we don't tell you what we vote for, we don't tell you anything about our life, we don't tell you, like, people may not care, but I'm still going to throw it out there because I sort of demand honesty and respect openness from the people that I cover. I can't demand them be open. I recommend it. I think it makes for better storytelling. It helps me. I think it better informs fans. But that's part of the reason why I'm out there the way I am, because what am I hiding? You may not care, but you're going to hear it, and if you don't care, you can move right on past it. But I'm going to tell you, because I just trying to kind of be the change you want to see in the world, as they say, right? That, and I'm just not smart enough to be anything other than myself. So I don't act like I'm anything else. I just tell you what I think. And you know who else does that? Rick Barnes. Really good at telling you exactly what he thinks. The living embodiment of that old Jerry Seinfeld sketch about when you reach a certain age, put the car in reverse, and you're not looking in the mirrors anymore. You're just going. That's what Rick Barnes is. It's one of the things that we love about him. And I say that genuinely, like, love that part of his personality because it makes our job more enjoyable. And it's just a nice, that old guard, the way they were about things, enjoyable. It is. And Tennessee is about to play its first game in 10 days. Tomorrow night, the 20th ranked Vols hosting 11th ranked Louisville. And check this out. This is the first time Tennessee, unless the line changes, right now it's Louisville favored by 1.5. If that holds, this will be the first time since 2020 that Tennessee will be an underdog on its own floor. First time in 5-6 years that Tennessee has been an underdog on its home floor. Vols are on a 3-game losing streak, and we've talked about it last week. Think about that however you want. I'm not panicking. When Ben McKee was in here, he's not panicking. Excuse me. But the fact is they've been better than they are right now. And I think they will be okay, but lost here before in a row. Not great. Rick Barnes did meet with those of us in the media corps this morning over there on campus. And we'll talk about all this stuff that he said after we play you what he actually said, which we're going to do right now. Here's Rick Barnes from this morning.
Because you just had your guys, from 9-10 days with no classes, just basketball. What was the focus? Where you feel you made the most progress?
Well, I think a lot of things. There was a lot that we had to work on and keep working on, and I do think we've made some progress, but we'll see as we keep moving forward here. But I thought their attitudes were really good in terms of, we just broke down everything where we felt like we had to make the biggest jumps. Obviously, it's taking care of the ball was a big part of it. Defensively, our ball screen coverage, trying to continue to clean that up with so many people doing that. But just overall, as a group, trying to get guys to understand the roles, the details, just any and everything you could imagine. That's what we talked about.
I guess after the Illinois game about feeling like y'all practice well and then don't take that to the game. Do issues feel more fixable when you practice well, or is it more worrisome when you don't feel like you can?
Well, I think we have practiced well. We'll see tomorrow if we can play well. And we're playing against a team. I've got a lot of respect for Pat Kelsey and the job that he's done at Louisville. I mean, he took over a program that we know this has had great success, certainly for a long, long time. And he won the great coaching jobs a year ago, and he's doing it again this year. And so it'll be a great test for us, and we're going to see if we can get better when the lights come on.
I guess maybe when you are in the stretch where you're finding some of the practice stuff isn't translating to the court, are you more so looking for the execution in practice, or are you looking to that attitude that you mentioned in practice?
It's mental. It's a mental part of it. Coach Knight always talked about how the mental to the physical is 4-to-1, and that's right. I mean, and physically these guys have worked hard. They have. They've worked hard for us from day one. But understanding basketball the way it needs to be played, they want to do it. There's no doubt they want to do it, but they have to do it. And it's a matter of just understanding the importance of each possession, the details that go into it, and just simply passing the ball the way it needs to be passed, things like that, and not being sloppy. And but if you'd have told me when the season started we're going to be counting on as many young players as we did, we knew we had a lot of new players. But tomorrow night we're going to start 2 freshmen, which I would have not thought that really, but that's where we've gotten to, and we'll continue to see where we go with this team.
Who's starting besides Nate Marvin?
Dwayne. Dwayne's going to start tomorrow night in place of Cade.
Why Dwayne?
He's earned it. Just that's it. He simply, with his consistency, he earned it, and we're going to base everything we do based on everyday practice habits and consistency, because that's what we haven't had. Everybody has shown glimpses of this or that. We want to see consistency, and those are the guys. But I look at our front line, to be honest with you, whether it's JP or Jalen or Feed, those guys are all starters to me. But the fact is, the guy that's going to start is going to be the most consistent guys.
There you hear it. There you hear it. Dwayne Brown, the third, the freshman, will be starting in place of the injured Cade Phillips, who, if you've been under a rock for the past week or so, that's understandable. Some of us, like me today, I'd kind of like to be under a rock. That's kind of how I feel right now with what's going on. But little playing through it, playing hurt. But Cade Phillips is seriously, legitimately hurt. He's got that shoulder injury he's been dealing with for a while now. They finally went ahead and decided to shut it down while he could still redshirt this season. And so he's out for the year, and Tennessee still has a lot of depth in the front court, which is a good thing, less than it had, which is not ideal, but still it's got plenty of it. But Dwayne Brown and not Jalen Carey will be stepping into that starting role, not JP Estrella either. So that might surprise some people. I think it's kind of Rick Barnes being Rick Barnes a little bit. Maybe he kind of wants to keep pushing Estrella and Carey a little bit, because it could be a reward for Dwayne Brown III, which I think it very well, that's at least part of it. It may not be 100% of the reason, but it's definitely part of the reason. They've loved that young man ever since he showed up this summer. Rick Barnes has said many times this young man is the surprise of the roster this year. The way that he's stepped in, and they knew he was going to be a developmental player, and they're still developing him, but just the way that he attacked everything from day one and the success that he had. We talked about this last week. He knows what he is as a player and what he is not as a player, which as a freshman is really important, because you've got to be willing to, during practice, work on expanding your game. But then when the lights come on for a game, you kind of got to know what you are and what you are not. And you got to kind of play to those strengths, and you got to do what the team needs you to do. And then you spend practice time kind of working on other stuff too. And I think that's kind of a tough thing sometimes for kids to do. And I think he's really, really good at doing that. And he's a guy who defensively, effort, rebounding, glass, you know what you're going to get from him. And then Carey and Estrella, you bring that offense off the bench. I kind of like that. And I think Carey's going to be one of those guys that I don't know if he's ever going to be Mr. Consistency. Maybe he'll surprise all of us and do that. But he just, he's not old, but he's a junior now in college, and sometimes you just kind of end up being what you are, and that's fine, because when he's on, he's dynamite. But I think maybe making him prove it a little bit longer before you want to put him back in the starting lineup, I got no problem with that. And as Rick Barnes said himself today, I'm not sure if we had that in our clip today or not, but I know he said that it really doesn't matter, because it's a matter of he thinks all those guys are starters, and then it's how many minutes are they playing. In fact, I think it's more important who ends the game than who starts it if it's a close game. And I think the minutes distribution is what matters. So if you want to keep starting some of the guys who maybe aren't as offensively dynamic, but they give you that good kind of rugged start, good physicality, setting the tone, and they know who they are, so if they got the bucket, they'll go take it. If it's there for them to go take, they'll take what's theirs within the framework of the offense. If you tell them to post up, turn around, shoot, they'll do that. If you tell them to run the offense, kick it out for a three, they'll do that. And they'll go attack the glass relentlessly. And then you take the guys who are a little bit more offensive minded in some ways, or have them come in against the second team, or when the starters are a little tired for the other team. That's fine. I kind of like that. But really it comes down to just who's playing. It comes down to who's playing the minutes. He had 12, he had 13 dogs, 5 bones. Now I guess he's got a dozen dogs, 5 bones. He's still got depth. But Phillips was one of those guys who was probably, I think, almost always going to start because of sort of the example he sets every day, excuse me, and because of the defensive intensity that he has. Like, you know what you're going to get from him. And it's not, you also, by knowing what you get, you know what you're not going to get. So you can work around that. Which is one of the reasons why coaches often play guys who don't have maybe the upside or dynamic ability of a younger athlete. Because they'll say, I got to know what I'm getting. Like, if I don't know what I'm going to get, I have no idea how to coach this because I don't know what's going to happen. If I have at least a couple guys out there who I know what I'm getting, then I can take the other 50% or 60% or 80% of the guys and I can rotate those pieces, but I know what I'm getting here. And that can be a peace of mind. That can be relaxed. That can be a stabilizing impact for a team, for a coaching staff, for everybody. So that's why sometimes you do that. It's not just, you don't just go, who are my 5 best scorers? And let's figure out a way to get them on the floor to start. Well, no, because that's, first off, offense is half the game, not 100% of it. It's 50% of the game. The other 50% of it is you're playing defense. You're trying to stop them from scoring. And if you can't do that, may I direct you to the 2025 Tennessee football team. Eventually, that puts pressure on an offense that it's going to break too. You have to be able to know what you're going to get defensively on the glass. These things help you. Excuse me. Or if you know you can get it or you can't get it. And so I get why he would do that. I get why he would say, you know what? It's fine. Cade's going to start. Then the other guys will come in. We'll see what they got. And he might end up playing only 5 minutes in the first half, but he's going to start because I know what I'm going to get. And that's why these things kind of happen. So I also think it might be a good deal for, maybe as a way to manage JP Estrella's minutes. Because I think you're seeing pretty clearly that he's a guy who's going to be banged up sometimes. That doesn't mean that he's injury prone. It absolutely does not mean that he's soft. Those are two very different things. People can be injury prone and not soft. And I cannot stand it when people can't separate those two things. Because that's just not fair. Sometimes guys get hurt more than other guys. Sometimes girls get hurt more than other girls. It happens. It doesn't mean you're soft. It means you get hurt. And so, but with Estrella, you're working him back into the rotation from missing a full year, right? And he's already gotten hurt a couple times since coming back. A little dinged up here and there. Not the end of the world, thankfully. Knock on wood. But he's already missed some time and had some issues. So what do I do with a player like that who I know I'm going to need? And I know that he maybe can't play more than 15, 20 minutes in a game right now. Well, I'm not starting him. Because once the game starts and he's producing, I know myself. And I'm going to want to keep him out there. And if he's not supposed to play more than 20 minutes, and he's played 20 minutes, and there's 3 or 4 minutes left in a close game, what are you doing? He's on the floor. And you know you shouldn't do that to him. You know you can't do that to him. So what do? You say, okay, I know that the first 4 to 5 minutes of each half, I'm not playing him. So now I can play him 20 of these 30 minutes, or I can play him 20 of these 40 minutes. First one's a little easier to figure out. And the first one also helps you box yourself in to protecting yourself and protecting the player as much as you can. Now, people will say, what's the difference in 20 and 25 minutes? Well, I can't sit here and tell you. I'm an idiot. I can tell you what I've read from and people that I've spoken with who work at the college level and the professional level, and I can tell you that they say that when you approach a red line physically, you are much more likely to get hurt. You are significantly more likely to get hurt if you have pushed yourself beyond the red line. And the red line's different for everybody, but you can usually see it physically. They track all their movements. You see those vests they wear that, for lack of a better word, look like sports bras, basically, that they wear underneath their jerseys that all athletes wear now. They're tracking their GPS stuff, their explosive movements, their top speed, their maintained speed. Excuse me. And so they're looking at it, and they can tell when a guy starts dipping. They're like, okay, does it look like he's still trying? And if it does, then he's hurt. Or he's reached a point where he's fatigued, or she's fatigued physically to the point where now they're going to compensate for something. Now they're not going to be on guard for something. Now they're going to get hurt. Now, there's nothing that prevents you from, like, you step on somebody, you roll over your ankle, you get hit in the wrong spot when you're up in the air. Hey, you can't prevent that. You can't legislate against that. But what you can do is physically, so you can reduce the risk. That's all you can do. You can't eliminate it. It's sports. These athletes are bigger, faster, stronger than they've ever been, on average. They're testing the human body. Look at the NFL yesterday. Look how many more catastrophic knee injuries there were there. We are pushing people to the red line. And then if you're coming back from one injury, you know what you're more likely to do? Hurt yourself again. You can be coming back from an ankle injury or knee injury, and when you do, it's X percent more likely that you're going to pull a hamstring. That's science. That's what the numbers are telling people. So, I mean, I know follow the science isn't quite the universal truth that people used to consider it. Now people don't in our world anymore, unfortunately. But still, like, until I'm a doctor myself, I'm going to trust what they tell me, by and large. And I know that they say if you reach a certain, once your performance gets into the red line, you're going to get hurt. So what I'm saying is there could be a million reasons why this guy starts and not this guy. And that might be one of them. But that's not something that you're going to talk about often. Rick Barnes will, because Rick Barnes will talk about anything. But there's times where if somebody's on a minutes restriction and I think I'm going to need him in the clutch, it means you're starting the game without him. So that's just something to consider, I think, anyway, Tom. Does that make sense? I'm not a scientist at all. I'm dumb. But all I can do is pass along what I've read in that way.
I mean, I hope people believe the injury reports at the very minimum. And I mean, what you're saying is true. It does feel like we're as time goes on, the game gets more physical. You get more injuries going on there. It's just, as you said, people are. It's a whole different game than it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago. People are trying to maximize all sorts of gains that 20 years ago that they weren't even thinking about.
Yeah, and it's one of those weird things that, like, all you can do is say, my job is to keep these guys healthy, or my job is to win games. At the end of the day, my job is to win games.
Yeah.
And because of that, I'm looking at how do I best do that over the long haul. I keep my guys in the best physical shape they can be in. That's a start, right? That helps. And there's some things that Rick Barnes won't bend on. Like today at practice, he had a bunch of balloons blown up. Mm-hmm. And when they had a turnover, pop a balloon. If all those balloons get popped, guess what, fellas? You're running until I say you're not running anymore. So he's still got that old school in him. Remember we talked about this last week?
Yeah, exactly.
With the whole, like,
a little bit of a
throwing
drill instructor mindset going on.
Yeah,
there.
you throwing passes back and forth for 30 minutes. Don't let them hit the ground, or 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. And if they hit the ground, you start again. I thought he might go that kind of route, and who knows, he might. But he's gone with the whole balloon drill that every time you turn the ball over, pop the balloon. And if I pop all of them, you're running.
It's kind of fun until all the balloons are popped.
Yeah. You're like, hey, that's fun. Hey, I like that. You know, it's like, trust me, as a guy who goes to a lot of kids' birthday parties now, there's a lot worse jobs to have than the guy who breaks down the balloons at the end of the party. That's kind of fun. But it's like one of the fun parts of it is pop, 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 pop. It's like
How many balloons were we talking here? Is like a 3 strikes kind of deal? 3 balloons?
Nah,
4
there were
balloons?
5 or 6 up there maybe.
Oh, that's kind of generous when you think about it.
Well, yeah, but I mean that might be like this is how much runway I'm giving you.
Yeah.
So imagine if we're popping all these guys, guess what? And that's where times where you can tell, and I've seen this at practice where Rick will be running the guys because he's old school. He puts them on the Versa climber. He puts them, you turn the ball over, you go on the Versa climber. You have a violation here, miss too many free throws, you go on the Versa climber. He's old school in that way. That Versa climber, it's one of his favorite punishments. Or just go run stadium steps. He'll do that too. Mm-hmm. And there's times where you can tell he keeps running them, and either the trainer or the strength coach will walk over and kind of be like, hey, Rick, maybe you should stop doing that. And then be like, all right, that's enough. You can tell he doesn't like it, but he's like, all right, I trust my guys here because they're saying that's too much. So you'll do that.
Sure.
But there could be many reasons why you're doing this. And that's what, if I want to keep my guys as fresh as I can or minimize the injuries, then I minimize the wear and tear I put on them during the season. And maybe that kind of conflicts at times with the whole, yeah, I'm mad at you guys right now because I'm going to teach you a lesson. So you got to give and take there. But we'll talk more about this game tomorrow because I do think it's a very, very big game. Louisville's a very good team. It did fall a little bit in the polls. It went from, I think, 6th to 11th or so in the past week. I think it's probably because that loss at Arkansas, which that's tough. You go to Bud Walton and you lose. I don't know if you should be dropping that much, but that's what it was. But since then, they have beaten Indiana, which was ranked at the time, or might still be ranked. I think it was ranked at the time, and then whooped up on Memphis just a couple days ago, actually. 99-73, I think, was that final. That's whooped up on them. They score a lot of points. Pat Kelsey's a great coach. He's crazy. Now, Pat Kelsey's whether you say it's a good way or bad way, he's got a screw loose. That guy is full tilt. He was that way at Charleston. He's been that way at Louisville. That guy gets after it. And they've gone after it in the portal, too. For people who say that you can't, like, does going to Adidas make it hard for something? No. Louisville's Adidas. Look at that basketball roster they bought this year. My goodness. They're okay. They got a couple first-round picks on that team. It's a good test for Tennessee. And I'll be interested to kind of get a feel for the crowd, too, because students aren't here right now. Now, some of them probably that are still from the area can still get student tickets. But when school's not in session, there's a reason why you try to go play, in Hawaii or in Vegas, some road games, neutral site games, go to Nashville, Pro Town. There's a reason why you do those things that time of year, and it's because your students aren't here. So you want your home court advantage to be the best it can be. In order to do that, normally you need your students there. And they'll have some there. But I'll be interested to see that atmosphere tomorrow night because they've lost a couple games in a row. Unusual. They're underdogs at home for the first time in 5-6 years. Unusual. They haven't played in 10 days. Unusual. And so the past 10 days they've been getting yelled at, watching film, and taking finals. That's been their past 9. Happy holidays, fellas. That's been their past 9 days, is having Rick Barnes yell at them, watching film, in study hall, and taking final exams. That's been their final 9 days. Whew. Happy holidays. Also practicing in the morning just to make sure you're not going out at night. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's been quite a few fun days for them, I imagine. But before we get out of here, Will mentioned that, and this was just before we went into the show today. God knows what could happen in the past 45 minutes. But some big names have hit the quarterback portal.
Okay.
Just putting this on the radar for everybody. The list of guys who have either already gone into the portal or reports say they're going into the portal. Good reports. Reports from people I trust. DJ Lagway at Florida, Dylan Raiola, Nebraska, Brendan Forsby at Cincinnati, Sam Levitt, Arizona State, Aiden Childs, Michigan State. And there's going to be more. But that's just off the top of the dome that I wrote on a piece of paper before I came in here. There could be more by now. And so we've entered that portion of the offseason where the great Tennessee quarterback debate begins. The stakes are what they are. We've discussed this. They're known. But essentially, Tennessee has three options. Tennessee can either say, okay, and maybe Jake Merklinger's in the mix too. We'll see. We'll see. I don't know if he will be, but technically he hadn't gone in the portal yet, so we'll see. But you got George McIntyre, Faison Brandon, two young five-star kids, one freshman, one redshirt freshman. Option number one, you let those two young five-star guns duke it out. One's the starter, the other's the backup, or they're both playing, and here you go. That's door one. Door two, you go to the top portion of the portal. Like not even 1B guys, 1A guys. One of the top names in the portal. Because if you go 1B, it's the same thing as going 1A, because both would run the risk of chasing off one or both of your young five stars, because that's how the game is played now. That's how it is at quarterback. And if you take 1B, it's going to be the same reaction to those two young fellas as taking 1A, because it tells them, I'm probably not going to start this year. And they might not take kindly to that, because that's how it goes nowadays, one ball. So that's a problem at quarterback. So that's door number two. Door number three, you bring in somebody from the portal who is capable, who is a veteran, but who will not scare off those two young guys. Now, you could argue that there's variants of each of those three doors, but by and large, that's your three doors. There's three of them. Trust the young guys and take that risk. Bring in somebody who almost certainly will scare one of them off, if not both of them. Or bring in somebody for depth who wouldn't make them run off. Now, that's a hard thing to do, because you talk about an inside straight draw. To bring in somebody who you think would be good enough to help you in a pinch, and he would come without the guarantee of starting, because he probably wouldn't, but he also wouldn't scare off the other two guys. That's a really small, I wouldn't say it's impossible, like Kevin Garnett said, right? Anything is possible. But it's hard to find somebody who ticks all those boxes. That's a Venn diagram with a very, very small center. And that's why you can try for that, because that may be the smartest thing to do, maybe. But it's also the hardest thing to do. There's a reason why it's probably the smartest thing to do, because it's the hardest thing to do. If this were an easy decision, everyone would know, and it would be very obvious what was happening. But we know this is a big season for Josh Heupel. We know it is. And we can't predict how warm or cool his seat will be 6 months from now, let alone 12 months from now. We don't know. Nobody knows. That's the world we live in. Should it be that? I don't know. Maybe not. But that's our world. So we can deny it. We can try to change it. We can hope to change it. But we can't deny that it's reality until proven otherwise. And so we don't know. So it's a big year for him. You don't want to have this many losses 2 years in a row. And it's a tougher schedule next year, by the way. So you could argue, yeah, you know what? Go get one of those top five guys. It is what it is. You don't want to scare off the younger two. But if you're bringing in one of these top names, if you're not guaranteeing them the job, you're all but doing it. And so, yeah, that's where you are. And if you make that decision, I can't say that's wrong. I can't say it's wrong. I don't know if it's what I would do, but I don't know exactly what I would do. Because to me, that depends entirely on who's possible, who could come. You're moving behind the scenes right now to figure out, okay, because you know Tennessee's at least kicking the tires, because Tennessee's not stupid. Tennessee's going to kick the tires on this because it should. And so you kick the tires a little bit and you say, who's out there? Who's attainable? And if they came in, one, how much would it cost? Two, what do we think that would do to the younger guys? What do we think? And so What are we having to promise that guy to get him here? And so if you're doing that for like, there may be, of this list of 5 names, there might be 1 or 2 that Tennessee would say, yeah, I'll take that trade. I would take that. And whatever happens, happens. And there might be a couple other names on there that they're like, nah, I don't know if it's worth it for that. I don't know. So that's why you can't say you have to do it this way or you have to do it that way, because it depends entirely on who does Tennessee think is out there, how do they fit into the system, and what would it cost? That's what you're asking. And so that's why you can't sit here with a blanket policy of saying you have to bring somebody in. No, see who could come in, and then you make a decision. Then you let things go out there and marinate a little bit. But right now you're just kind of kicking tires and figuring things out and saying, if I kick down this door, am I getting stung? Can I hit this hornet's nest or can I not? Is it worth it? Because worst case scenario, you let it be known that you're out there, and then you don't get one of these guys, and these 2 young guys know, oh, you were trying to bring in somebody else? You don't want to be in that situation. And you wish that these guys weren't so kind of mentally wired like that, but they are. So there's something to marinate on for the next 23 hours, because when we're back here in 23 hours, we're going to know more names, who's in the portal, who's not, and what does it mean? And we'll still have basketball to talk about. Who knows what we'll have to talk about tomorrow. But we know it will be a lot, and we know that hopefully I'll feel a little better and not cough. And hopefully we do all this smoother. Thank you, Tom, for being here today. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you in about 23 hours.